Some stories, they don't just scare you, do they? They seep into your bones. They're like echoes of a world where the veil between the living and the dead is just terrifyingly thin. Today, we're going to journey into that world through the pages of Lafcadio Hearn's masterpiece, Kwaidan, a collection of strange tales that really captures the ghostly soul of old Japan. Okay, let's dive in. So let's start right here, in the middle of a blizzard. The line on your screen says, "She was very beautiful, though her eyes made him afraid." And that single line, that's it. That's the feeling of the world Hearn is inviting us into. He doesn't knock gently on the door. He comes in with an ice-cold breath on the back of your neck. It's a place full of deep shadows and supernatural encounters that feel just chillingly real. A Japan that was, believe it or not, already starting to fade away when he first arrived over a century ago. And that's really the crucial point here. Lafcadio Hearn wasn't just some writer collecting spooky stories. As this quote from the original 1904 introduction points out, he was a bridge. He was a man from the West who dove so deep into the culture, the language, and the very spirit of Japan that he could translate its essence for the rest of us. He really became our guide into its hidden inner life. Hearn's real genius was his ability to just listen. He listened to the whispers of folklore, to these ancient warnings that were buried inside tales told by peasants and priests. He took these stories, these little fragments of a nation's soul, and he managed to capture them in English with such poetic grace that their power wasn't lost at all, but, transformed. He gave a voice to a Japan that was, even back then, unfamiliar to a world that was modernizing so fast. So let's see how he does it with our first story. And this is a tale where the past isn't dead, it's not even past, it's just waiting in a graveyard, listening for a song that will make it weep. This is the story of Hoichi the Earless. So our main character, Hoichi, he's a biwa hoshi, a blind, traveling minstrel. He lives this quiet, protected life at a temple. But here's the thing, he has this extraordinary gift. When he plays his lute, the biwa, and he sings about the great sea battle of Dan no Ura, this incredibly tragic, bloody conflict where the Heike clan fell, he doesn't just tell you a story, he brings it back to life. I mean, this quote really gets to the heart of it, right? Think about that. The power of his art is just immense. Hoichi's music is so potent, so emotionally powerful, that it could move not just the living, but the entire supernatural world. His skill is like a magnet for forces way beyond his understanding, a talent that's going to prove to be both a blessing and a terrible, terrible curse. And so it begins. One dark night, the head priest is away, and this deep, commanding voice calls for Hoichi. It's a samurai, come to escort him to perform for some noble lord in his court. Now, Hoichi is blind, so he has no idea where he's being led, but he can feel the chill of a grand, ancient place. He senses he's in the presence of a silent, huge, and very high-ranking audience. And this is where it gets truly chilling. As Hoichi plays, this ghostly court is transported back in time. They're not just hearing a song, they are reliving their own violent deaths. Through Hearn's incredible writing, we realize that Hoichi has been summoned by the ghosts of the Heike clan themselves to perform for them in their own graveyard right next to the sea where they died centuries ago. Well, when the head priest finally returns, he's horrified. He knows the danger immediately. The dead are draining Hoichi's life force. To save him, he comes up with this desperate plan. It's a sacred ritual. They strip Hoichi down and, using holy ink, they painstakingly paint the sacred text of the Heart Suture directly onto his skin, his face, his chest, his arms, his legs, turning his entire body into a holy talisman to make him completely invisible to the spirits. But they make one catastrophic mistake. In their rush, they forgot to paint the sutra on Hoichi's ears. So when the ghost samurai returns, he sees nothing of Hoichi's body except for 2 ears just floating there in the darkness. Unable to take the whole musician, the samurai does what he has to do. He rips the ears from Hoichi's head to prove to his spectral lord that he followed his orders. Hoichi survives, but he's forever known as Mimi-nashi Hoichi, Hoichi the Earless. Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from the restless dead to another kind of spirit entirely. This isn't a ghost tied to human history. This is a being of nature itself, ancient, beautiful, and as absolutely merciless as a winter's storm. This is the tale of the Snow Woman, Yuki-Onna. The setup is classic folklore. You have two men, one old and wise, one young and full of life, and they find themselves totally isolated, completely at the mercy of the elements. A sudden, violent blizzard traps them in this tiny hut, miles from the safety of their village. They are absolutely powerless against the storm that's raging outside. That night, the door bursts open, and in comes this woman, dressed all in white, her breath like a frozen mist. She is the Yuki-Onna, the spirit of the snow. She leans over the old man, Mosaku, and with a single icy breath, she kills him. But she spares the young man, Minokichi. Something about his youth captivates her. She lets him live, but on one terrifying condition. He must swear a vow of absolute silence. And the terror of that night, it just fades. Life goes on. Minokichi meets this lovely, gentle woman named Oyuki, which, by the way, means snow. They fall in love, they get married, and they build this wonderful life together. They're happy, they're successful, everyone in the village loves them. They have 10 beautiful children. The memory of the snow woman just becomes a distant, hazy nightmare. And right here, this is the fatal moment. One snowy evening, he's comfortable and safe in his warm home, and Minokichi looks over at his beautiful wife. He feels this wave of pure contentment wash over him, and in that moment of perfect peace, he decides to share his darkest secret, the one story he swore he would never, ever tell. He breaks his vow. The transformation is instant, and it is horrifying. His gentle wife, Oyuki, becomes the Yuki-Onna once again. Her voice turns into an icy shriek. She's ready to kill him, just as she promised. But then she stops. She looks at their sleeping children. She spares his life, but only for their sake, warning him to treat them well. And then she melts into a cold white mist and vanishes forever, leaving Minokichi all alone with his broken promise and his completely shattered happiness. So, okay, we have two very different stories, right? One's about vengeful ghosts, the other is about a nature spirit. But what's really fascinating is how Hearn, by saving these stories, shows us the underlying rules of Japanese folklore, the ancient laws of the supernatural world. So let's break this down. Hoichi faces what's called a yurei, that's a human ghost, tied to history, tied to a specific tragedy. His taboo, his mistake, was meddling with the world of the dead. So his punishment is physical. A part of his body is literally taken from him. But Yuki-Onna, she's a yokai, a natural, inhuman force. The taboo with her is a broken promise, a violation of a sacred pact. And so the punishment isn't physical. It's the complete destruction of his social world, the loss of his love, his family, his entire happy life. The punishment always fits the crime, which reveals this deep cultural belief in a kind of cosmic justice. So the takeaway here is that these aren't just supposed to be ghost stories. They're actually moral lessons. They're cultural warnings passed down through generations, all about respecting boundaries. The boundary between life and death, the boundary between humans and spirits, and, of course, the sacred boundary that's created by a promise. Over 100 years after they were first published, why do these stories still hit us so hard? What is it about Hearn's collection that continues to fascinate and chill us right to the bone? Well, ultimately, Hearn's gift was context. He didn't just tell us the story, he explained the world that the story came from. Through his eyes, we start to understand a culture where duty is everything, where promise is unbreakable, and where the spirit world isn't some fantasy. It's a constant, watchful presence, existing right alongside our own. And that leaves us with one last thought. Hearn preserved the warnings of old Japan, but what about our own stories? From urban legends to campfire tales, what boundaries are they warning us not to cross? And what are the consequences when we, just like Hoichi and Minokichi, fail to listen?